The deaths in actual battle are the easiest. Those that die under my knife or from some consequent infection. I have to remind myself it was the enemy who killed them and not me. Worley was a casualty of war, as surely as if a French ball had taken him. At the same time...
At the same time, what?
You know I wear two hats on every voyage. I am the captain's particular friend and supporter, but I am also the ship's doctor.
Speak plainly, Stephen.
As a friend?
As a friend.
There is talk below deck of turning back. Or rather that we should have turned back weeks ago. The men would follow Lucky Jack anywhere, rightfully with the expectation of victory. But therein lies the problem. You are not accustomed to defeat, Jack. Perhaps pursuing this larger, faster ship with its long guns is beginning to smack of pride.
It's not a question of pride. It is a question of duty.
Ah, duty. I've heard it spoken of fondly.
You can be as satiric as you like, viewing the world through your microscope. Now that's your prerogative. But this is a ship of war, and I will grind whatever grist the mill requires to fulfill my duty.
Whatever the cost.
Whatever the cost.
To follow orders with no regard for cost. Can you honestly say there is nothing personal in this pursuit of duty?
What is the requirements of the service? My orders were to chase her as far as Brazil. I exceeded my orders a long time ago.
And how long are we to play cat and mouse?
Well, Stephen, the bird's flightless.
Yes.
It's not going anywhere. I recently read The Value of Others by Dr. Orion Taraban. You might have seen his channel Psych Hacks. And one of the most profound paradigms of that book is this idea of captaincy. In fact, the entire inspiration of this week's video is Master and Commander, captaincy, a sailor navigating his own terrain and charting his own course. The reason for this, according to Orion Taraban, is because in dating dynamics, men often are the captains or the sailors. They try to get the best ships. They sort of spend decades cultivating a lifestyle that maybe women would find attractive and they would want to join. And he frames this argument that women usually are passengers who come on board for any captain's ship. Regardless of what you feel about that conversation, it is interesting to place your own life in the context of a captain, because throughout the journey, throughout the adventure, you will be shipwrecked at times. You might be commandeered to a different port. Some ports, they might be shady. So it is interesting to consider how you can do your best work, how you can get the best results by being the captain of your own life and moving forward in this particular way. There's 4 ideas to cover in this video. Let's get into it. The first idea is this: even during vacation or rest, you are existing. You see, the idea of like vacation or taking rest, it doesn't actually exist because you still have to be alive. There's no rest, there's no vacation from agenda, itinerary. Consider it, the last time you were on vacation, 90% of the time, it's not that you're just lounging around. I mean, maybe there is a bit of that, but in addition to the lounging, usually you chart a course. You say, hey, on this day, I'm gonna be hiking. We're gonna go hike this peak. We're gonna go to dinner here. You have to have an agenda, even on vacation. This is to say that throughout life, there's no freedom, there's no break from activity. And you have to decide what the activity is going to be, even during rest. There's a great folly that many of us think that, oh, I'm burned out. Oh, I don't know what to do with myself, or maybe I'm stuck. And so sometimes you maybe deviate from the plan, or you deviate to a different condition to get the result you want. But you're never gonna find rest from the action that you need to take. You're never gonna find rest unless you're sleeping. Really. This gives you an opportunity to maraud your way through life. And the best way to maraud your way through life is to always have an agenda. even if you're in like a rest and relaxation period of your life, always have an agenda. Because actually, that is the only way to freedom, is to have your calendar filled up with things you want to do for that day, the things you want to accomplish. Don't fall into the folly of thinking that, oh, you need to sort of gather your resources, rest. You'll actually find that you end up getting more energy from action. You know, I realize now one of the most alpha things you can do with your spare time is play video games. Play video games and read books. It sounds completely counterintuitive to self-improvement advice to play video games, but consider that the opposite of that is to like doom scroll, which is a trap that is so easy to fall into. You're better off actually using your attention to play Breath of the Wild, because Legend of Zelda games, they have puzzles in it. You have to focus. Even that type of leisure, it makes you be better. And it gives inspiration. There's so many amazing movies that I haven't seen. In fact, the entire film catalog of Paul Thomas Anderson, movies like Magnolia or Inherent Vice, or even Boogie Nights, I haven't seen so many of his films, but it's almost like an act of inspired leisure to set out to watch a movie, to choose a movie, one that might actually be difficult to engage with initially, rather than something else. I'm reminded of the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, in which he gives the example of two different people coming back from work. One who just turns on the TV recklessly and just tunes out. That's like the past version equivalent of scrolling your phone. But this other person he describes works on a garden with his wife, and he actually gets really invested in the seeds that he's planting, the soil, fertilizer. He engages deliberately with every part of the process. There's forms of leisure that actually invoke greater flow state. They get you involved more. And so rest by itself is not rest. Burnout by itself, it doesn't exist, because you still need to be alive. And to be alive means you're better off just setting an agenda. The solution to this then is to maraud your way through life. A sailor who charts out for a course, maybe to catch a rival enemy ship, to intercept the Acheron, as they did in Master and Commander. They always chart a course, and they're constantly striving to get back on course. That's what it means to maraud. I find that the best way to generate attraction from people, from the world, from opportunity, is to just chart your own course and violently take action. Chart your own course, maraud your way through life. That is the way of the captain. Idea number 2, hyper niche yourself. Decide who you want to be. Once again, in The Value of Others, Orion Taraban argues that one of the best ways to get what you want in terms of dating dynamics is to hyper niche yourself. And he gives this in the example of like two people who are offering to give a beautiful woman a date. Like say, hey, let's go on a date. One person might create a date that he thinks the woman would like. Hey, I'd love to take you to this restaurant. Maybe you like fine dining. I'd love to bring you here. We could have this experience together. He's sort of deviating from his own way to provide an experience for someone as part of his offer. Nothing wrong with that. That's one way of doing things, but it's not very niched. The other way of doing it is to already create a universe of your own. That's the way of the captain. And he simply says, do you want to get on this ship? Because the ship is going here. What does that look like? Well, for me, in many times in the past, it's like, hey, I'm working on this feature film. I need to do a location scout. Do you want to come with me? I need to show up to the Twin Cities Film Festival networking night. I need someone to go with me there. Do you want to come with me? Do you want to join me on this thing? I'm meeting up with my friend. We're going to a concert. Will you join with me here? I'm currently in the process of looking for West Coast and East Coast talent agents. I have one in the Midwest, but I'm trying to finally re-engage, reinitiate with higher tier representation. And what gives me confidence to actually pursue that endeavor now is the fact that my own ship is moving in a certain direction. The fact that I have finished 2 parts of a feature film and I'm getting going on the 3rd iteration. It's something that gives me courage because it's something that an agent can latch onto. Same with the fact that maybe I've already booked my first SAG job. I know what it's like to film self-tapes. Give someone some direction to go with. People don't want to latch onto or join up with someone who's creating something from nothing. This brings us back to the topic of hyper niche yourself. Your adventure, your journey of marauding your way through life is an opportunity to hyper niche yourself. One of the most beautiful things that happened in the era of my life where I was pursuing marathoning and a triathlon, Ironman training, is that it gives you an opportunity to hyper niche yourself for relatively cheap. I mean, triathlon can get very expensive, but running is a relatively cheap hobby. Really, if you just want to get into it, if you want to create an identity and you can't find one, any kind of fitness goal, like being a runner, being a marathoner, or even a bodybuilder, for relatively cheap, you can create that identity for yourself. This gives you an opportunity also to set goals for yourself that are fully achievable. Know that when you hyper niche yourself, you really have a chance to decide exactly what you want to be. I never thought that in my 30s, I'd be someone with an earring or with long hair, maybe even working up to a ponytail at this point. I never thought I'd be that guy because in the institutions that I come from, being clean cut is super respected. But I can be anything I want to be. If I want to be a rough and tumble motorcycle guy, it's an opportunity. Like, no one's taking that away from me. That's something I can do for yourself. So this is a journaling session for you to go through with yourself. It's one of the most important things you can do with your own character, with your own life, is decide who you want to be. It's often useful to start from the outside in. So you could say, hey, how does my character want to dress? Does he dress in this? Does he wear boots? Does he wear peacoats? Does he wear cologne? Is there a certain kind of watch? How does the character dress? What does he drive? At least in the build of the character, you can set ambitions that you can work towards. Are you a truck guy? Are you Americana? Do you drive a luxury vehicle? Or do you drive a beater because you have that sort of Tyler Durden quality and you like to be economic? You get to decide who you want to be, what time you wake up, what time you sleep, how you conduct yourself, what your diet is. In the building of the archetype, in the creation of the hyper niche, you can start with habits and you can start with physical goals that help you create an agenda for yourself. For me, it took many years to find out that my archetype is actually the director. I found this leg of being more so in my early 30s. And it took till then, it took till around the age of 30 or 31 to realize that my archetype was more the director than anything. So anytime I engage with someone, anytime I have any sort of dialogue, it's often around locations, skill acquisition, building, networking in the context of cinema. Because though that industry is expensive, it's a leg that I could get into on my own. And I didn't need to wait around for an LA agent to approve me. I didn't need to wait for a casting director like an actor's archetype might to start making material on my own. So what is your archetype? Orion Taraban, he has this amazing line. He says it's actually better to be hyper niched when you're trying to be seductive, because the person with a generic offer, like, hey, do you want to go to this dinner? It's very hard to create any kind of polarization or buying power, buying heat. If you were hyper niched and you said, hey, do you want to come location scout with me on this film, or whatever you think your archetype might be, most probably you're going to turn away the majority of people. But even if 1% of the people you're giving your offer to really buy into your universe, then you're going to have a ride or die. You're going to have like a really profound experience. It's one of the most important lessons in business marketing is to niche down, but it also rings true for results in life, results in dating, results in your career especially. Be niched. Be willing to create the exact archetype you want. If you feel like you need a ponytail, you want long hair, you want a buzz cut, you want to be an MMA guy, you want the archetype of someone who's traveling and you understand credit card points and loyalty programs better than anyone else, and you travel with Remova luxury luggage, whatever it might be, you can build the archetype that you're working towards in advance. And that is yet another leg of captaincy and something that gets you better results in life. Idea number 3, expansion exists everywhere, especially for the organized mind. A channel that I've been tuning into a lot lately, maybe some of you have seen this as well, is The Pathfinder by Bogdan. I want to give a shout out to him. He makes semen retention content, but with the most amount of like detective energy I've ever seen. It's really funny because sometimes he's up on like a whiteboard or he's up with a bunch of postcards and it looks like that Charlie Day meme of like, where's Pepe? Where he's just like looking like that. He seems to be really interested in finding out just what is behind the veil of existence, what is behind the veil of life, in what way are we in a simulation, which I can really respect. And he did a recent episode with this guy who's an actor. I found that episode really compelling. In fact, I'll link it here in case anyone wants to check it out. It might be one of the links down in the description box. In that interview with that actor, I found it really interesting that sometimes people who are hyper fixated on one industry, especially one that is as impenetrable as entertainment and media, you forget that you're looking for expansion, and expansion is possible for you if you look for it, generally speaking. In acting, you definitely can go on 1,000 auditions and book none of them. Like, that can certainly happen. Or even for me, over the last 10 years, you could send out emails for higher tier representation and literally never book it. But expansion, just in life in general, is 100% possible to the person who works hard, especially someone with an organized mind. In fact, many YouTubers you may know, like Ryan Serhant, originally wanted to be actors, and Ryan Serhant eventually made it on Netflix, but as a high-end real estate broker. In fact, he made multiple millions through real estate. It still carries a lot of the same qualities that acting might: interpersonal connection, seducing, selling yourself, presentation. It's just a different medium, and it was a universe that he could break into, and it's still an exciting, compelling life. To be one of the top-end New York City real estate brokers is still an incredible life. I had a similar conversation with a friend of mine who was fixated on the LA market for acting and how much struggle there is. He's like, oh, there's fewer parts, there might be fewer parts for Indian guys. And I told him, listen, all we're really looking for is expansion. Imagine, maybe this year you don't book an acting job, but what if, you randomly stumbled your way into like a high-end job and then you found yourself on a ski trip. And on that ski trip, you got really immersed in learning how to snowboard or ski, and you got really good at it over 2 or 3 months while making a remote income. You would be happy about your life. Even though you might not have booked a major SAG job, you would be happy. Why? Because expansion exists everywhere. That actor in that podcast seemed like in a certain era of life, his focus was only acting. And when that was giving him friction, he wasn't able to find growth. He wasn't able to find a different rung in Los Angeles by which he could expand. Arnold Schwarzenegger also had to wait a decade before acting took off for him, but he still managed to find expansion. He actually self-produced and made his own documentary, Pumping Iron. He also got really, really into real estate. He kept himself busy. In fact, Arnold Schwarzenegger embodied many of the principles of captaincy that I'm describing here. He marauded his way through life by constantly keeping himself busy with school. He always had an agenda, whether it's multiple hours a day of training, going to Santa Monica College to work on his accent, or to take some college course. He took acting training all the time. He was really into the bodybuilding universe, and he brought a lot of marketing energy to bodybuilding. While Arnold was waiting to make it as an actor, he wasn't simply waiting. He was incredibly busy. And that busyness is conducive. That busyness creates a result. So what this tells us is that expansion exists. In fact, if you are living well, if you're living correctly, you are naturally going to start to expand. The best way to do this is to have a meditated mind, to have an agenda for the day, and to get after it. Just do that, you are naturally going to start expanding. So regardless of the situation you're in, some sort of expansion is available. And if there's a different rung that you want a lot, if that's giving you resistance, keep chipping away at it, but also open up your mind and ask yourself, where is expansion possible? Because it is your duty to expand, and it's something that you are able to do if you pay attention to the universe. This brings us to the last idea of the video, which is what you're looking for is excellent days, regardless of status. A great example that I want to use in regards to this is The Odyssey. It's a movie that just came out, of course, but in The Odyssey, Odysseus is the king. He is someone of kingly status. You can't really get higher status than that. But when he was returning home to Ithaca after his voyage, he showed up as a beggar. And as I was having a conversation with someone inside my school community about it, I said, really, internally, both being a beggar in Ithaca and being the king, it should sort of feel the same. Because for the result that Odysseus was trying to get at the end of the film, being a beggar was actually a more useful uniform, a more useful sense of decorum than immediately showing up as the king. It gives you a totally different vantage point. And Matt Damon inside that film, he had a sense of agency when he was doing his best work. In fact, The Tale of the Odyssey is one of the best examples of captaincy and how one could possibly lose it if they don't have an organized mind. So what you're looking for is excellent days, regardless of status. Excellent days. For many of my contemporaries, many of my friends, their financial positioning today, or the stuff that they have available to work on, it's like less than it might have been for them 6 or 7 years ago. I've had conversations with like 7 or 6 friends of mine who all said the same thing. In 2020, I was making way more money. And I can see how it's sort of like affecting their spirit, affecting their sense of identity. But really, just like Odysseus, whether you are of kingly status in a particular room or you are of beggar status, even as a beggar, you can be really fulfilled. You can be extremely sick. Like you can have a sense of agency. What you're looking for is excellent days. Just waking up, doing good work, pursuing things well. Simply the excellent pursuit of a thing gives you the aura of being a captain, gives you that status. So what does this mean? One day you might be 77 years old. You won't have the physique that you have currently. Looks maxing and dating dynamics will most certainly not be of interest to you. But hopefully, even at 77, you will be able to wake up with an agenda. It might be that day you wake up, you want to go for a walk, you want to do some kind of exercise. Maybe in that era, you're retired and you're really into gardening. In that case, you would want to garden well. Maybe you want to return a book at the library and you got really into reading about history, literature, whatever it might be. You'd hopefully be in a position to create little projects for yourself, because that is still living out the principles in this video. That's still living out the mark of a captain. So the main takeaway from this video is this: the tides are gonna rise, they're gonna fall. Things can get tumultuous, but if you keep your internal state organized, if you keep the mind sharp, and if you give yourself an agenda to work on consistently, if you hyper niche down, decide the archetype that you want to choose for yourself, it's gonna be a great adventure. Regardless of what happens, it's going to be a great adventure, and it is definitely going to contribute contribute to expansion. If you're new here, my name is Nikhil. This channel features about 1 or 2 videos per month, usually video essays inspired by some semblance of cinema. If that is at all interesting to you, I would invite you to subscribe. If you want to connect with me further and for behind the scenes content on the stuff that I'm working on, you can follow me on Instagram at nrajapande. I have a school community that you can check out. It meets once a week, live calls with me on topics anything related to just making progress as a creative entrepreneur. And lastly, if you want to work with me on an intimate environment to learn how to be an effective content creator, to produce your best work, then I have a coaching program that you can check out that I've been running for the last 4 years. And I've had students of mine who've gotten 100,000 views on their very first video working with me. I've had clients in the past who've gotten to $10,000 per month and beyond. They've grown their channels to 100,000 subscribers and more. So it's something that I'm really proud of. Links for everything that I do in the description box. But as always, for those of us who are willing to focus on expansion and an organized mind, to us I say, greatness is coming. We'll catch you in the next one.